Oh my word, here she is.
Yes, that's the Fiat 500 from 1959.
She's small but beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Does she have a name?
It's a he. His name is Giuseppe Verde because he's Verde Chiaro, which is light green.
Got
and
it.
Giuseppe Verde was the composer, so we called him Giuseppe.
I love the exposed hinges on the car itself.
Yeah. But let's have a cup of coffee and talk about cars.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so Fiat has always been a great producer of small cars, and in fact going right back to the 1920s when they had the 508 Belilla and then the 500 Topolino, and then after the war they had the 500 Cub. During that post-war reconstruction period, remember Italy was absolutely devastated by the war, and the people were just starting to recover and they were starting to afford a new car. Fiat decided to redesign the 500 series completely. It was an affordable car for the working people to buy. For someone who had previously had a Vespa scooter, perhaps this was his first car. You know, you had an all-weather capability and you could take your date and you could go up into the mountains or go and have a picnic somewhere, and it gave personal mobility.
Now you could do this with your very own Fiat 500.
Exactly. This particular car is still from the first series, 1959.
Okay,
And they
same
made
shape.
basically the same shape with the suicide doors that are hinged at the back.
Very interesting.
Well, let's have a closer look at it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so these are the doors I mentioned that open in the
Very
reverse
unique.
sense to what we are used to today. They call them suicide doors. I guess if you fell out, it was pretty much
The suicide
a
mission.
suicide mission, yeah. But anyway, hop in and I'll show you some of the controls inside.
I'm quite tall, so this is actually not as bad as I expected it to be, hey?
The city itself, this dashboard, your ignition key, your wipers, lights, and the instrument lights, conventional indicator stalk and headlight dip and dim. Yes, it doesn't have a solenoid like most cars, so you actually engage the starter by pulling that lever, which then pulls a cable to engage the starter motor. As soon as she starts, you just let go and it's sprung loaded back to neutral. But the car doesn't have a plasticky feel. They've got
Not
a
at
metal
all. I mean-
dashboard and
Yeah, it's exposed metal, which is great. I mean, and it's actually really beautiful in its simplicity. Except for
No.
the steering wheel in this car, there's no other plastic.
that's it. That's all cast aluminium. Well, this car had a little more chrome trim,
More chrome trim.
than
And
the
the-
base model. So they called it the Normale.
Yeah.
And it's got hubcaps. It's got some chrome trim around the doors, also around the windows, and it also was the first model with the wind-up windows. You've got two different sunroofs. This is the half sunroof, and then you had another full sunroof that folded all the way right down to the back. So if you had any luggage, this would be the place to store it. See, but remember, this is also the fuel tank. Here's the fuel cap,
Okay.
and that's where you have to refuel.
How far can this car drive on a full tank?
Well,
Have
it's
you
only
ever
got
tried it?
18 litres. I've never driven that far to run it out of gas, but they're fairly economical little cars. Well, the first series is characterized by these interesting park lights. It's a combination of a park light and a turn indicator light. The second series, they abandoned the system. They had new laws and they put the park light down here. This is actually an air intake for fresh air. It's ducted there through to your knees, so you can have some fresh air with the windows closed. This is, of course, where the engine is at the back. We can have a look at this powerhouse of a two-cylinder engine.
Oh, that's huge, eh?
Yeah, all of 13 horsepower in 1957. By the time this car came out, I think they pushed it up to a whopping 15 horsepower. Yes,
Okay.
and it's cheap to operate, and that's the design brief, and it ticks all those boxes perfectly.
Let's take the 500 for a spin to Idiom tomorrow morning. Hey, John. So I was wondering, can I maybe borrow the Fiat 500 to go back to Idiom tomorrow for a wine tasting with Elspeth?
Yeah, sure, Armando, you're welcome. Just remember, it's a crash box. You're going to have to double declutch going down.
Hi. Thank you very much. Roberto, how are you?
Welcome, Armando.
There you go.
Elspeth.
Hello.
Welcome. Good.
Thank you very much for having us.
Hey? Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
So, can you tell me what is the Italian connection here at Idiom?
Well, the Italian connection is primarily the fact that our family is of Italian origin. So our surname is Bottega, and my father came to South Africa as a boy after World War II, together with his parents. In the late 1990s, he came back to the Cape, where he grew up, and started this farm as a retirement project.
So, which part of Italy is your family from?
Our family comes from the northeastern part of Italy, from the Friuli area. I have added my little bit. I'm responsible for organizing the biggest Italian festival in the Cape. We haven't been able to have it the last 2 years because of COVID.
So, Roberto, please tell us more about the Italian wines and the Italian varieties that you have here at Idiom.
Okay, so obviously with our family being Italian, we wanted to respect that heritage a little bit. So when we were laying out the vineyards, in fact this year the vineyards are 21 years old.
Wow.
So my father decided that he would like to plant some Italian grapes. And so we planted Italian varieties that were available. We've planted Sangiovese, which is the most important red grape of Tuscany. We've planted some Nebbiolo and some Barbera. And finally, from the stiletto heel part of the Italian boot, there's a variety called Primitivo, which is also known as Zinfandel in California. Oh. And so those are our four main red grapes that fly the Italian flag for us. We've also made two more accessible wines, which we've introduced more recently, and they're called our Idiom Bianco and Idiom Rosso. These are earmarked as, and already are in many Italian restaurants around the country, as really good quality house wines. It's our take on a Stellenbosch Chianti.
So is the restaurant here at Idiom also Italian or Italian inspired?
In some ways, I don't think we could say that it's an authentic Italian restaurant. However, there certainly are elements of Italian in the dishes. It would be fair to say that there are at least 3 or 4 Italian-inspired dishes on the menu at all times. Our brief to our chefs is to use the origin and the heritage of all the grapes that we've planted here at Idiom for the dishes that they can make. So there's a lot of scope to have a lot of fun in the kitchen here. And we do have pizza too. In fact, pizza is part of our more casual menu. So each of the pizzas respect the different ingredients of the region, and for that reason we've given the pizzas the names of the regions. Yeah, and the idea is now to pair them with a glass of the regional wine. So now it's possible to have a Friuli pizza with a glass of Friulano. So we use our white label for our red wines and our black label primarily for our white wines, but also in the case of our very limited 900 series, where we produce only 3 barrels of really limited, exclusive and rare wine, we also have a black label for that. Both Barbera and Nebbiolo are low production, just choosing the best of what we have. In fact, the name Nebbiolo is thought to come from nebbia, which means fog. And in Piemonte, they also have this phenomenon that the sea fog extends all the way up to the vineyard growing areas. It happened this morning, and it happens quite often, so it's just a sign that maybe Nebbiolo is meant to be grown in this area.
Roberto, what does idiom mean? Where does the name come from?
A strong, powerful name to describe the range of wines that that we make on this property, and intense, flavorful wines. So we were looking for something to try and capture that. And expressive, and an idiom is an expression. We are fortunate that we can take our visitors like yourselves on wonderful tasting itineraries and tours and let them taste the Cape idiom, the Cape expression of the great wines and the great wine regions of the world right here.
Thank you so much for giving us all this information about idiom. I think that it's absolutely incredible what you guys do here, and I'd love to taste some of your wines.
Armando, that's exactly what we're going to go and do now. So you can see some of the view, and we're going to taste some of our Italian varieties.
Fantastic. Let's do it. Roberto, can you please tell us a bit more about these two wines, the Sangiovese and the Nebbiolo?
Sangiovese is the most important red grape, and it makes the red wine of Tuscany, and there are many different variations, quite a strong cherry spectrum in the wine, and you can get anything from red cherry, so in more acidic versions, right through to deep dark black cherries. But the wine is also known for its freshness, and that's because it has a very high natural acidity. Different with Italian varieties. Fruitiness, freshness, but then also a little bit of earthiness.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Nebbiolo?
Yeah, so Nebbiolo is an interesting Piemontese wine. It's actually considered to be one of the top Italian wines, and Nebbiolo is known as the king of wines, but also the wine of kings. It was first mentioned back in manuscripts in the 1300s. Another important fact about Nebbiolo is that it's one of the few wines that successfully marries a red spectrum with a black spectrum. So what does that mean? It means that there are notes of roses and tar. And our idiom examples here that we make in the southern part of Stellenbosch have received quite a lot of compliments, even from our friends in Italy.
To the wine of kings and the king of wines.
Thank you very much.
Ching, ching.
So when Fiat launched the new 500 in South Africa, we were asked to make a special commemorative label for Fiat. And so we made a wine which had both the old and the new Fiat 500 shapes on them. And a bottle was placed in the first 500 the first 500 cars that were sold. Yeah. So our wines are big, stylish, and elegant, and the bottles capture the character of the wines.
Do you have any advice for anyone who is interested in learning more about Italian varieties, Italian wines in general?
Well, I can give them one tasting tip, that it's important not to swallow immediately when you taste.
Okay.
Italian wines, because of the high acidity that the reds often have, often take a little bit of time to deconstruct and for the mouth to break down the acid profile in the mouth. A lot of the flavors come in the retro palate.
Okay.